So that's been my biggest learning of being able to understand we do the things that we do because that's what we know. And sometimes our clients do this in their business lives. People do it in their own general day-to-day lives. It's because we're creatures of habit. And sometimes it's around recognizing what those things are that no longer serve us. And that can take a little bit of, I'm not going to say hand-holding, but just asking the right questions. And my job is never to correct people, but it's to help you to find what the right answer is for you. Because it's not a one-size-fits-all. We're all completely, beautifully, perfectly imperfect. We're all very different in life. And what might suit one person does not suit another. But I can sometimes help to figure out what those things are that don't serve you, because when you're stuck in it, you can be stuck in it and not see.
Hello and welcome to the Healthy Business Lab podcast, where we usually interview other allied health practice owners, get their stories and their insights, but we're also building into our community, as I've been introduced to so many people who work with those in this space as well. And because this person today is an absolute amazing individual and is a mentor to me as well, I had to get her on. So Kim Macdonald from Kim Macdonald Co. Welcome to the call today.
Hey, Craig. Thanks for having me. I'm so pleased to be here.
Yeah, so good to have you on board. And knowing that you've worked with people in their health and wellness space, I thought it was very appropriate to get you on for a discussion because, as I touched upon there, Kim is my quality mind mentor. And we've been connected now for many years through many different spaces and the like. And I'd love for you just to share a little bit about yourself and what you do. Again, I love your tagline of mastering your money, mind, and life for unstoppable success. And so with that as a base, I'd love you to share to our listeners a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Well, yeah. As you know, I'm Kim Macdonald, and I guess my biggest thing is that I'm a money and mindset mentor, and that encompasses a whole lot of things just within itself. So I tend to work a lot with business owners and the breadwinners of the family, which are those people that are the ones that may look successful on the outside, but quietly they're really struggling on the inside about all the things that they're managing to handle every day. So they might be the ones that lay in bed at night staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m, stressing out about money and not being able to share the information with their partner, or they might be laying in the bed alone with their partners being elsewhere or being completely a solo parent. They're the people that I love to work with because I've been down that road myself, and it's been a really big journey for me in my business. A bit of a backstory is I've been in business for well over 15 years now, and my business evolved significantly over that time, starting as being a BAS agent or a bookkeeper, as lots of people know us as, and then having that business and having staff and growing and shrinking and changing and evolving and all the things that come with that, and especially during some really awesome years there of COVID and all the things that went with that. And then, selling my business and stepping fully into mentoring, because that's really what I was doing by the end of it anyway. So I found that the biggest way to help people was actually listening to them and understanding the things that they were going through, and that was reflecting with their business. So I could help them from a numbers perspective, but then also help them with the mindset that goes along with that.
That's an awesome background and introduction to where we generally go next with our conversations, because again, you've highlighted that evolution of what you've done and coming from the financial background where, we often do see once you start pulling back that curtain, it's quite often a very emotional space. There's people laying themselves bare, so to speak, and they are the conversations that we often end up having. I know we talk about here financial brain care, because we do often step into that being a sounding board, and money touches upon so many aspects of life. So I'd love to hear your evolution there and some of the learnings that you had. As you were transitioning away from sort of some of the transactional stuff the bookkeeping profession does provide, which is much needed, but as you started to lean more into that supportive role, when I say lean into more, I know that you used to do that in the first place anyway, but where you're taking that sort of next step, sort of What was your thinking and some of the learnings around that time as you were transitioning yourself with how you're providing support to your people?
That's a really great question. I guess the evolution of that started as I went from bookkeeping, so to speak, and having management meetings with my clients and sitting them down and showing them these amazing reports that I'd done up and then asking them questions about it and then showing them, this is the profit we've got and this is how much. And they'd be like, I just don't get it. Like, where's my money? And the shame, the guilt, and just the heaviness that those conversations would lead to. And it was in those moments. So this was many, many years ago, but it was in those moments I felt I really needed more tools myself to be able to help people see I was removing all emotion from these figures. And I'd forgotten that my clients were not able to do that because they were so stuck in it. And this was their day-to-day life. This was the thing that they were not shutting off from at all. And so it was in those moments I went, I actually need some more tools. And I really started to lean into and learn more about the human brain and our behavior and all the things that come along with understanding money from a behavioral perspective as well. So I started to transition that through with my clients. And from there, obviously started to learn a whole lot more about the brain as well, not just to do with money and our behaviors, but encompassing everything in life. And also how that then shows up in every aspect of life. And as I was implementing those things, as I was learning them, my life began to change. And I went, oh, wow, this is kind of really important stuff. And I really would love to share this with more people. So that's kind of how it transitioned and has changed into how I support my clients now. Yes, we may still go through numbers. Some people I don't. Some people we don't even talk about numbers at all. It's got nothing to do with their physical finances. It's actually the way that they show up in life. And money can be sometimes a part of that.
Yeah, that's so true. And again, we've seen very similar things out in there in the world from the financial base. But I would like to just touch upon that. And you touch upon behaviors as well. And for those that can see us, the Profit First book that's over my shoulder, you're a fellow Profit First professional there. I'd love to just touch upon that a little bit there around the human behaviors and that sort of lead into pulling back the curtain and having people understand that idea of, well, hey, books and numbers, black and white, they're looking great, but the emotion, I'm still churning. There's still a lot going on there. I know that's one of the tools in your toolkit to help people. How have you found that helps bridge that conversation between the black and white versus the emotional side?
I think one of the really big things that we started to work on with clients was, yes, although their numbers may have been looking great on reports and things, and the owners may have been sitting there feeling kind of okay, they were kind of lackluster. It was feeling like they were in Groundhog Day. It was literally rinse and repeat every single day. They were missing out on things to do with their family. And it was kind of like they just needed to keep pushing and pushing and pushing for this success. And when we sat and actually talked about, well, what does success look like for you? A lot of people actually couldn't even answer that. They didn't even know, but they knew that what they were doing was what they thought they needed to do. And so it was diving into the behaviors and the thoughts and the processes that happen at that point to start to look at, okay, well, what is actually the purpose of your business? What is the purpose of you showing up every day, apart from doing a job that you may or may not love? Because sometimes when you get to that lackluster point, it's like you start to become resentful for all the work that you're putting in and you're missing out on the other things. So it was really about diving into those kind of questions and understanding, well, have you taken a minute to stop and consider where you're at right now in life? Is this what you were actually wanting to do? Or has it just been you've continued to follow the bouncy ball and life has kind of happened at you rather than you being part of it?
Yeah, I love those insights there. And I love the word that just kept on jumped out at me was that lackluster feeling. And you mentioned it a couple of times. And it's such a feeling that I know I've experienced that in my life. It's a very natural thing, but it's also then identifying that and joining those dots between, well, what's happening in the numbers through to, well, what's the impact of that? And as you then sort of touched upon people not knowing and the deeper conversations about where they're going, I was just picturing in my head, it's just something very similar to, I guess, our allied health business owners who are very person-centered approach, looking at that and seeing the insights of what their clientele are doing and then going, well, how do we tie the dots between that? Which, again, I think, interestingly, where you then went for your next sort of phase was around that, going deeper into the brain that you touched upon there. And I'd love to sort of progress in as you sort of started to move into the quality mind world and share a little bit about that opening, I guess, and how that all sort of evolved as well.
Yeah, our brains are such incredible things, aren't they? Like,
unbelievably so. Yes.
I was going to say, you get mind blown, but it's kind of like a pun, but not a pun, because literally the stuff that goes on in our heads is incredible. And I think my biggest learning as part of evolving throughout this whole personal development space and learning more about myself and being able to help my clients has been understanding the patterns and behaviors that I had and all of the programming that's happened to me in our life. Each and every one of us, we're born into this world a completely blank slate. Apart from our actual processes of knowing how to breathe and our heartbeats, we don't have to think about these things. But literally, we're a blank slate. And the only way we can learn things is for people to teach us things. Sometimes those things are amazing, like don't put your hand on the hot plate because you're going to get burnt. Keep you safe type stuff. Sometimes that can be fears that have been leading that person their entire life is then put through onto you. So one of my amazing realizations of this was, as a child, we're all taught to kind of not speak to strangers, right? So growing up, I lived in a really small country town, which was great. And you don't talk to strangers. That's okay. I don't need to because my brothers were older. They knew everyone. So I pretty much knew most of the people around me anyway. But then when I moved to a really big city, which I considered a big city coming from a 5,500 population town, I was like, I can't talk to strangers. I was a teenager, nearly in my 20s at this stage. And I found it so incredibly hard to be able to even apply for jobs because I was like, I feel really uncomfortable making conversation with people I've never met before. Now, I did not know that this was the thing that was patterning in this program, right, at this time in my life. It's only now that I can reflect back. But also then as I got into my own business and going to networking events and things like that, and going to a networking event, showing up and going and standing in the corner for the whole time because I'm like, yes, I've got here. I walk out and I'm like, I haven't spoken to anyone, but I've been to a networking event.
Because they're all strangers.
And they're all strangers. And I'm like, how's that working out for you, Kim? It's not really. So it's understanding the things that we're taught, that some things can continue to serve us and some things don't. It's okay to let them go. They got us safe. They led us up to that time and we're allowed to make changes. We are totally in charge of our own lives and the choices that we make, including our thoughts. And a lot of people aren't aware that we can change our thoughts. We totally can. Because beliefs are simply a thought that we just keep having. Okay, if a belief's not great, let's change that thing. So that's been my biggest learning of being able to understand we do the things that we do because that's what we know. And sometimes our clients do this in their business lives. People do it in their own general day-to-day lives. It's because we're creatures of habit. And sometimes it's around recognizing what those things are that no longer serve us. And that can take a little bit of, I'm not going to say hand holding, but just asking the right questions. And my job is never to correct people, but it's to help you to find what the right answer is for you. Because it's not a one size fits all. We're all completely, beautifully, perfectly imperfect. We are all very different in life. And what might suit one person does not suit another. But I can sometimes help to figure out what those things are that don't serve you, because when you're stuck in it, you can be stuck in it and not see the things that no longer serve you.
Yeah, it's the whole peeling back of the onion, isn't it? At the right time and being able to see those layers, identify those layers because of you've seen this however many times, hundreds of times before, and unpacking that. And it's always easier being that external source at the end of the day. As an individual, we always struggle to see internally what's going on around us, and it's always been able to get to that sort of little helicopter view. And the key thing I sort of took away there is that identifying what's not serving us, because we do the old analogy of the tractor wheels just following the previous tractor wheels because they get so deep, it's just easier to there than to turn out of it. And it's really hard to get out of those tractor wheels. I'm not sure if that's one that I did hear from the Quality of Mind program as you stepped it through, but I think it's a very interesting one. So if we're talking about that idea of identifying what's not serving us and, maybe a couple of strategies to help people sort of start to identify these things, where would you have them sort of start?
I think the biggest thing is if you consistently have something that comes up in your thoughts. We all have this little internal dialogue that runs along in our day. And some people don't. Some people have a feeling. What the thing is, it's a highlight to tell you, is there something that's not right now? So an example of this is with some of my clients, when we're talking about money specifically, I ask them, so when they go to tap their card to pay for something, what's the first thing that pops up into their mind as they go to pay for it? And is it different for different things? So if they're buying groceries compared to going to get a massage, compared to going and buy something for the car, what's the thought that comes up? And then afterwards, what's the thought? So, I can't tell anyone about this. Or do you say to your kids, don't tell your mum or don't tell your dad, I've just done that? Because they're the kind of little things that you go, all right, if that's coming up, that means that there's a belief here. So what is that belief? It's around continuing to ask the question, but why do I believe this? Because majority of the time, as I was touching on earlier, that pre-programming stage happens between 0 to 7, 7 to 14. And for money things, it can be into your 20s. But the thing with that is, okay, can I hear my mum in what I'm saying here? Can I hear my dad in what I'm saying here? Is this actually my thing or is this someone else's thing? So the very first step is actually recognizing what the belief is. And then the second step is, whose belief is it?
Cool. Love that on so many levels. Such a brilliant, powerful, tying it to habits of that. We're all using our cards or our phones or whatever to pay for things these days. You're just tying that to, what is that feeling? What is your feeling in the moment before, in that moment after as well? Because there's psychology out there around that. The immediate buyer's remorse idea that we all have it in some form, but if we actually attach the feeling to it, the emotion, and then also understand, well, is that mine or is it the generational impact or the education or the marketing message that might come in and it's like, oh, this person said, or whatever it is. At least then we can start to, you need a diagnosis at the end of the day to be able to do anything. And I sort of, my mind always goes to that idea. It's like, what's the thing? What do we need to diagnose? I love that. That's so cool.
And it shows up in so many different ways in our life too. It's not, I just used money as that example because it's an easy one that people can relate to. But I don't know about you. As a child, one of the other stories I was continually told is when I was sitting down to eat dinner, that if I didn't eat all the food that was on my plate, that there was children in Africa that were dying of starvation. And somehow that link between me not eating all my food meant that someone was going to die. And for me, that was terrifying as a child growing up. I'm like, oh my God, I must eat everything, even if I was full. Or even if I really did not like the food. So we were being taught that we must always listen and must do all the things. But actually what that led it into my life was actually a case of overeating. Every time I went out anywhere or every time someone served food up for me, I would make sure I would eat everything on the plate because there's children dying and stuff, because that's not okay. And then that was a really big learning for me to go, oh my gosh, I'm going so far beyond what I'm comfortable with simply because of a belief of something that actually makes no logical sense at all. But it continued well through into my 20s and 30s. And it was only the last kind of 5 to 6 years I've really recognized that and gone, oh my gosh, I actually don't need to finish all the food on my plate. It's okay to not be full. I don't have to eat it all. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's these things show up in so many different ways in our life.
Yeah, well,
but it's starting to recognize them. And that's the thing. I think generally as human beings, we are so eager to get into our day and we just do the things without really questioning or looking at, well, how are we actually showing up and doing the things every day?
Yeah, so many great insights there. I think that the self-awareness, the insights, slowing down, taking the pauses and just being conscious and aware of them. Again, you touch upon the dinner table there. I know it's something that been very conscious of around here. My example is not quite similar, but I know it's that component of the manners at the table or all those sorts of little things. And I was about to say something the other night and I was just like, hang on a second. No, that's definitely just come down from previous generations. But because I have been practicing, and again, never perfect, but always working on that, what's the pause? Why is, our dinner table is very different out there. We're likely to have 2 to 3 of us in our 5 household here at the dinner table, all eating different stuff because there's just people that can't handle or cope and those things. So it is an interesting thing of just that awareness. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit more, I guess. We've sort of talked about some of the concepts that you talk about it with Quality Mind. I'd love for you to just share a bit more of a broader outline of Quality Mind and I guess even the program and what steps through, because it was only the other day on the weekend, I was doing a bunch of decluttering and, I've always been conscious of decluttering is kind of good and the like, but it is something that stood out from the early part of working with you around mindset and Quality Mind and the like, and just unpacking that over the weekend. It's just like, it's just so freeing. So I'd love for you to share some of the stages and the things that you touch upon and work through in Quality Mind, just so that our listeners have a bit of an idea of the framework that goes around this way of thinking.
Yeah, for sure. It's quite an involved process and program that we go through. And I guess the thing with it is such a great program that you can come in and do it once and then get loads out of it. You can come in and do it again and you'll get the next lot out of it, because no matter how many times we're taught or told something or we hear something, until we're really ready to hear it, we're not going to get it. So as part of the journey of going through a Quality Mind transformation is first we get in and we recognize all the things that have our programming, as I was just saying earlier, starting to recognize how we're showing up. What are the things that are getting us stuck? Then we start to go through, well, how do we actually change that? Because it is quite an easy process to change it. It just takes repetition. And as you were saying earlier with the tractor tires, it's okay. We can make a whole new path. It just takes the repetition and the practice and making sure that it's happening consistently for it to change. So we go through recognizing, we go through starting to clean out all of the old thoughts that no longer serve us and starting to create the new ones. Then we start to go through the process. Well, what happens if we actually want to design our life? Like, what happens if we don't want to just show up and be living life as it's happening to us? What if we actually want to start to do things, and dare we dream to have a really incredible life? What happens if we do that? So we start to go through the process. Well, if you were to dream a big life, what might that look like? And what are the things and the behaviors and the thoughts that we might need to help grow and establish with that to help you to achieve it? So we go through the cleaning down, and as you were saying earlier, the decluttering component of it is quite massive, and we do that from a number of perspective angles. Physically cleaning out spaces actually helps to give us more energy, but also then mentally decluttering thoughts, behaviors, things that no longer serve us, help to make way for the new. And that's the whole thing. When we create space, we can bring new things in. So this is how the Quality Mind program works. It's really about understanding where you're at, wherever you show up at. And it's not about forgetting the past. It's not about being judgmental on the past. It's recognizing that that's okay. It got you to where you are now. And we're going to start to change things slightly or significantly, depending on where you're at, to create the life that you really dream of. So
good. That's such a good summary. And obviously the short space of time for the breadth of what you do does cover. And the big thing I wrote down that I just sort of scribbled a big circle around was that whole idea of designing life and designing business as well for our business owners out there that is so interrelated, business and life. The ability to be able to do that from decluttering, clearing out the space to create new is just brilliant. And you touched upon there, it's the transformations. And we love to talk about transformations here. So I'd love to hear an example that sort of sticks in your mind from the work that you've done with the Quality Mind side of things and creating some of these transformations. You got an example there for us?
Quite a few, actually. I'm going to touch back on the discussion I was saying earlier around myself around not talking to strangers. Throughout one of my sessions with one of my clients, I was doing both quality mind and we were doing some profit first work as well. So we're working on both. And the story goes that as a child, this person, they lived in a different country, and him and his brother used to have to take the bus every weekend to go to one of their practices. I think it was piano practice or something. And because he was little and money was a little bit tight in the family, they were only given enough money for one seat on the bus. So he had to sit on his brother's knee for the whole duration of the trip, whatever. So then as he got older, they said, well, okay, now you've both got to go and sit on the bus. So this is the very first time he's been given his own coin to go on the bus. And he was so excited to be able to have his seat on the bus by himself. And as he's going across the road, the coin just flips out of his hand and goes down the drain. And he's standing there in disbelief. He's like, they can't get the coin. It's gone. Like, it's totally gone. And his brother turns to him and says, oh my gosh, you cannot be trusted with money. Now, as a child, you may think that's an okay thing to say because you say you've got to be careful with your money. However, as an adult, this story has led him so many years and been the precipice for so many decisions that he's made that majority of the time he was spending money before he'd even received it because he didn't trust himself to have the money in the account. And so our transformation was from going, one, the recognition that he could trust himself with his own money was huge. And then it was that what are the strategies that we put in place to help you support that new belief? Because it's great to say it, but then if there's a part of you that doesn't really believe it, like kind of calls bullshit, you've got to have the things to follow up with it.
Yeah, now do you get that confidence? Yeah, how do you?
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes you need to borrow a bit of confidence to go, okay, it's safe for me to do this. It's okay. I'm going to be okay. It's my own money. I can hold it. The process through that and to be able to shift his belief through that has led to him having his business growth in the last 12 months has been incredible. He's got more money in the bank than he's ever had in his life. He's actually creating a personal wealth pot as well and has been able to do travel and all the things. And it's his own money. He's not actually using money that he didn't actually have beforehand to be able to do these things. It's his own money. He's not going backwards to go forwards. So that's probably been one of the biggest ones. And it's that learning that belief that set it in the first place. Another example I had with a client was that she could not bring herself to raise her prices. And when we went through and discussed, well, why is it that you can't ask for money? It was because she was taught she was never allowed to ask for money as a child. I'm like, okay, so that's kind of not working out for you real well now. When was the last time you put your prices up? 5 years ago. Because probably not going to work. So then we went, okay, so if you could put your prices up, what would that be? She landed on an extra $2.50 per service. I'm like,
Yeah,
so,
wow.
Again, it was that process of really stretching it out and then finding a place where she was comfortable. And, we jumped it up $15 and nobody batted an eyelid.
No.
She didn't lose a single client. But it was that process that we had to get through and the mind shift and the stories and the beliefs that needed to be kind of unpicked a little bit. And the worthiness and the support that needed to be put in place to go, actually, I can do this and I can do it comfortably. I'm okay to do this. So that's kind of probably been a couple of my biggest transformation ones.
Love those on so many levels, which just sort of summarise the steps that you've talked about on the discussion today. I got shivers, I got the goosebumps, and that's always a good sign for me and a good way to round out one of our chats. And we could talk for hours here on end, but we will wrap that up here. I'd love for you to be able to share now how people can connect with you. Where's the best place for people to find you, to be able to keep learning more about what you're doing, where you're doing it, and how you can help people?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that. So I've got my website, kimmacdonald.com.au, and connect with me there. I'm on Facebook as well, Kim Macdonald Co. I am on LinkedIn a little bit, kind of still tipping my toes in the water with that one there. But yes, I am around, and by all means, you can always email me directly at kimmacdonald.com.au. I'm out there to serve and to help people through these little mindset things that get us stuck.
Awesome. Really appreciate you sharing those details. And as always, we'll put those in the show notes so that people can connect. And I highly recommend following Kim's content and also reaching out for a chat, because you're going to get loads of value. There's so many little nuggets in there already that even I'm taking away, even having worked with Kim for a bunch of time. There's always something new, as Kim alluded to in the chat. So it doesn't matter how many times we see or hear something, sometimes we just need to be open to it at that point in time. And so I recommend you reaching out. Thank you again, Kim, for your time. It's so appreciated at the end of the day.
Thank you so much for having me, Craig. Happy to be here.
Good stuff. And so that's a wrap here from the Healthy Business Lab podcast. And as always, make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you and hear you and hear from us as I gibber away to wrap up this chat here. Over and out from us here at the Healthy Business Lab podcast. Thank you for listening to the Healthy Business Lab podcast. Make sure you subscribe to keep up to date with all the latest episodes.